Warning. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect that of the HHN TV or its constituent entities. Furthermore, some parents may not find this content suitable for children as it contains explicit language and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. I'm Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Matter of fact, just Google Fired Up by Duncan, and I promise you, I'm going to pop right up, compadre. Plenty to get to today. Obviously, we're going to be talking Florida State, Boston College from last night. We're going to be talking about Brian Kelly losing his mind. We're going to be talking about Kyler Murray bragging about his high school wins. We're going to be talking about Joey at 83 hot dogs. Good for you, my man. Jamar Chase, still not at practice. We're going to be talking about Texas, Michigan, how that game could turn out this weekend. Obviously, we're getting close to the official NFL season. We're going to be getting into that as the week progresses. But in the meantime, I said it wasn't an upset when Georgia Tech beat Florida State. And I maintain that. Wasn't an upset. You see, here's the thing that's bothered me about college football for a real long time, okay? And that is teams living off of the merit of past accomplishments. Miami did it for years. Tennessee did it for years. Being ranked, barely finishing the season with 6, 7, or 8 wins. Nebraska, how many years have they survived off of what they did in the middle 90s? The reality is, nobody should get a rank predicated upon anything that happened from last season. We can speculate. We could talk about the possibilities. But this football team is off to an 0-2 start. What was Norvell going into the season? 31-18, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, he had a football team last year that literally saved his job. And now we're not talking about Norvell being fired. Norvell, if he doesn't win at least 8 or 9 games this year, absolutely he's gone. There's a good possibility that he might be out the door middle of the season. We're talking October. October, this dude could be out. If it hadn't have been for what happened last year, he would have been fired. I'm telling you right now. This team is not that good. We've all finally seen it. What happened with Georgia Tech was not a fluke. What happened with Boston College tonight was not a fluke. You're letting teams, what did Georgia Tech run for? 197 yards in that football game? Boston College has hung up 270 on them, isn't that right? What have they given up? Over 400 yards of rushing in 2 football games. And then to top it all off, DJU struggled against a defensive backfield that all night long their starters were getting cramps. Florida State's season, to me, isn't done, but it's certainly on the brink. Look, don't forget, you could be a conference champion and still get in the CFP. It doesn't matter anymore. So if you go 8-4, as long as you win the conference, if you're a 9-4 football team, if you're an 8-5 football team, that doesn't matter. You're a Power 4 conference. There's a possibility. There's no possibility anymore. You could still get in the CFP. Let that sink in, folks. That's the new rules. That's the way that it works. Do you still agree with the conference champion automatically getting in, getting a bye week? You like that? So you better hope that Florida State, Clemson don't do just enough to get a conference championship. You better be hoping that Miami and that defense is for real. You better be hoping that Miami and Cam Ward is for real. Because otherwise, you are going to get embarrassed. You know, and like I said, we've seen this every year. They just showed you the graphic. In the last 10 years, all these times that a football team started out in a top 10, 0-2 to begin the season. Does anybody remember that Ole Miss team that everybody was so geeked up on? What'd they win, 7 or 8 games? Started out the season ranked number 4 somewhere in that neighborhood. I get tired of preseason polls. This is why. Look what happened with A&M. I have a huge pushback because we haven't seen anybody really do anything yet this season. And everybody looked at Florida State's schedule and said to themselves, well, they should easily start out 3-0. Why? Well, what did you see from a season ago from any of these football teams that told you that they couldn't beat Florida State or that Florida State was going to be who they were from last year? If they start out 0-3, it's over. And Memphis is known for games like this. And by the way, Florida State tomorrow, they're not ranked. That's all there is to it. Didn't do anything to deserve it to begin with. We're literally out of week 1. And they're already going to be out of the top 25. No. So Texas, Michigan, obviously, look, that's going to be a huge one. Matter of fact, I think game day is going to be in town for that game. Look, to me, Michigan took advantage of Sharon Moore. They took advantage of his loyalty. They took advantage of his youth, knowing that not even being 40 years old, that he's going to absolutely take a head coaching job at the University of Michigan. Of course he is. After Harbaugh puffed him up and gave him all this credit for last season and talked him up and did all these things, Michigan knew they needed something, and that was even with the fact that Sharon Moore had been suspended at the beginning of the season, the first game of the year. Now they got this really huge game coming up, and Sharon Moore is in a no-win situation. None. He's not in a place that is going to suit him. And when all this is all said and done, if he doesn't make it out of this thing on top, what is going to happen is he is going to be a coordinator at best at the next place he goes to. Because see, what's going to happen is all this cheating stuff, it's going to be hanging over his head too. Not just the University of Michigan, but it's going to be hanging on his head as well. And it's going to be placed on him, all the responsibility. Let's not forget that there were rumors circulating that Jim Harbaugh wanted a clause in his contract that said, if it hits the fan, you can't fire me. Now, that was speculation, and it still technically is. But for me, I think it's verified information because of the way the NCAA punished Jim Harbaugh, because of the way they said, no, you're not going to coach. You've got a suspension. If somebody's going to hire you, they're going to wait another year. You got to jump through all these hoops. It's not happening, my man. Basically, they gave him the death penalty, the SMU thing. That's essentially what they did to Harbaugh, right? Because he didn't want to play ball. So they said, okay, fine, to hell with you, watch this. Every game that Michigan wins is going to have an asterisk next to it to everybody. Sharon Moore was there. Sharon Moore was suspended for a game. You think people are going to look at him and go, you're innocent? It's not going to happen. He's going to have a hell of a time finding a job somewhere else if this doesn't go well. And if they beat Texas, I'm going to tell you something. They are going to say, well, they ain't really beat us. They found a way to cheat. And all this stuff going on, I wonder what they did. It's going to happen. I know somebody out there is going to say, well, Sharon Moore's a grown man. He put himself in that position. I'm not saying that he didn't, but let's keep it a buck. Who would you get right now that's a truly good football coach, and they would look at the situation with Michigan, they see what just happened to Jim Harbaugh, they know that they're still under investigation. Yes, I want to take that job, please and thank you, can't wait. I'm excited. You weren't going to go pull somebody that was an outsider. You had to look internally at what you had and go, logically, we've got to get Sharon Moore. The issue is, not only is he going to be marred in scandal to fans, not only to other teams is he going to be looked at that way, the University of Michigan, I guarantee you, will use him as a fall guy. Don't forget, they claimed that they had fired Connor Stallions. Come to find out, Connor Stallions had willingly withdrew. They've already put out false information on purpose, trying to make themselves look good. What do you think they're going to do to Sharon Moore? Don't forget, they were like, hey, Jim Harbaugh, we're going to do whatever it takes to keep you here, Broham. We really want you here. How long did that last? Not very long at all. They couldn't keep him, and I guarantee you that clause had something to do with it. Who do I like? I'll be honest. I like Texas to win that football game. I like Quinn Ewers. I like Isaiah Bond. I think Michigan's defense is going to keep them in that football game. But the run game is not nearly what they had last year from what I've seen so far. Now, the antithesis to that is if Michigan's defense keeps them in a football game, they could win. Look, like I've said, Texas under Sark has pretty much been run the football up the middle and throw it deep. There's not a lot of in between. So you give a team like Michigan the ability to key in, and it makes their play calling a lot easier. I think Texas is going to have to run some trick plays in this football game. Not necessarily trick plays, but maybe just gadget plays. Mix up the play calling a lot. I mean a lot. That run game has a lot of potential. You're going to run counters, tosses, sweeps. I mean everything. Draw plays, options. You're going to have to pull it all out of the bag in order to beat Michigan, because you're going to have to keep them off balance with all the different looks that you're going to give to them. And you can't just run the football on first down. You're going to have to come out, play action. You're going to have to throw it, straight drop back, whatever it is. You've got to really mix up the play calling. You cannot make it easy for Michigan, because if it's a low-scoring game going into the fourth quarter, it favors the Wolverines 100%. I think it'll be a closer game than what people expect. But I feel bad for Sharon Moore, because, like I said, this is a no-win situation for him. The only way to hopefully come out on top is to win probably about 10 games this season, and you got to beat Ohio State. I mean, that's all there is to it. You're able to get in a college football playoff, maybe you win a game, but even then, the NCAA is probably going to be looking at him too. So who knows if he gets suspended. This thing is a mess. It's a mess. And it's troubling for me because the players on that team literally have nothing to do with what is going on. They're just running their assignments, man. So we'll see what happens. Brian Kelly, didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday. I was talking about so many other things. Wow. Well, first of all, I like I said, I thought LSU was going to look back on that football game and think to themselves they should have won. Brian Kelly was correct. Now, if Brian Kelly would have taken true responsibility, then I think we all would have been okay with that. But Brian Kelly did what Brian Kelly does. Well, they're all acting like we're got the game in hand and it's already over on the sideline, but it's not. I guess that's my fault as a coach. Then he proceeded to go on and bash the team again. Because Brian Kelly doesn't know what accountability as a head coach is. He just wakes up in the morning and decides he's Brian Kelly and that's it. Everybody else, I'm here. What are your other two wishes? That's the way Brian Kelly views himself. The reality is much different. Ask Cincinnati Bearcat fan, ask Notre Dame fan, they will tell you, Because it wasn't just Notre Dame that he did dirty. Remember how he did Cincinnati? That football team was undefeated. But then he got the offer from Notre Dame, and instead of seeing the season through, what did he do? Dipped. And then his guys got mollywopped by Tebow in Florida. And what was supposed to be Urban Meyer's last game as well as Tim Tebow's. Brian Kelly ain't want no part of that. He goes to Notre Dame. What did he ever do? Get blown out by Bama in the BCS championship game? Get blown out in the college football playoffs? Come on. Then he dips out. What was it, November? November. He left Notre Dame. $100 million contract. I knew he wasn't going to take responsibility. Said that. I was like, man, he ain't going to take responsibility. And he didn't. And he still hasn't. Does anybody remember when he was at Notre Dame and he said, I'm a big fan of execution and maybe our players should be executed tonight? He said that after a win nonetheless. So not only was he completely out of pocket, but he said it after a win. Who the talks about an 18, 19-year-old like that, Broham? And then people wonder why I'm supportive of transfers and NIL deals and all that stuff. If he's talking like that to the media, imagine what he is saying when nobody's looking. Everybody's seen him go berserk on the sidelines. There's no way you haven't. If he's done that on the sideline, imagine what he's doing when nobody's watching, when there's no cameras at practice, when he's in the facility and he's losing his mind. Can you imagine? I haven't been a fan of Brian Kelly ever since he did what he did at Cincinnati. It was always the BBD, bigger, better deal. And I maintain that without Jane Daniels last year, that football team wouldn't have won 6 games. And look, they've got a pretty good quarterback in Nussmeier. There was nothing wrong with his performance the other night. They just didn't finish the job. It was a collective loss, and there was play calling issues. Again, Brian Kelly needs to take responsibility for more than what's going on the sideline. Hey, the offensive lineman is going, we can't hear you. Okay, they can't hear you. Time for a silent count. Somebody step up, take initiative. We're going silent cadence. 106 decibels, silent cadence. We are no longer operating on hand claps and color hard counts. None of that stuff's going to work right now. We have to change it up. He was complaining about the run game, like I said yesterday. Okay, you're getting 4.5 yards a carry with Josh Williams. Instead of throwing the football 24 times and running it 12 or 13 times, maybe run the football more. And not just up the middle. Now, in the third quarter, when they started to change it up and they started to do things differently, then they started to take control of the football game. Started running counters, some sweeps, a couple toss plays, mixing up the formations. But then right back to first down, run the football up the middle. The play calling on the goal line was horrendous. That's on him. He's the head coach. Can't blame your OC for everything. You get the final say. Brian Kelly, if he doesn't win 8 games, I think he's out at LSU this year. Now, it's a hell of a buyout, and they're probably going to have to be paying him to sit at home, but what are you going to do? Because that football team, if anybody watched them, they are championship caliber. There were some execution problems from the players, don't get me wrong. But for me, overall, I look at that team and I go, coaching. Coaching is 100% the problem. And that's really all there is to it. And I don't think there's any chance of anybody changing my mind. It's just typical Brian Kelly. Hard time against teams with ranks, with winning records. Everything is always a comeback. You're always playing from behind the 8 ball. You get off to a slow start. Look at Jane Daniels and what they had to do a couple of years ago in that first game against Florida State. And then they missed the field goal. Well, it got blocked. But again, execution. But who coaches the execution aspect? I'm just saying, at the end of the day, as a lifelong Syracuse fan, I would not want him to be the head football coach of the Syracuse Orange. And I'm not even a believer in Fran Brown. Kyle McCord looked okay yesterday or Saturday, but it is what it is. I guess I digress. They're going to win 7 or 8 games this year. Poor coaching decisions. You get on the goal line. I don't get it. Quarterback sneak. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles. You know? It is what it is, man. So Kyler Murray was asked, hey, man, what's a really great accomplishment? Said it was going up undefeated in Texas football. Nobody does that. Not in high school. Okay, Broham, that's cool. Look, I don't fault him for being proud of what he accomplished. It's something that led him to the position that he was in when he was in college. And when he got into the NFL, I wasn't the biggest believer. But then his rookie year happened, and I thought, okay, there's something there. He's cooking. The issue with Kyler Murray is that he phones it in. You know, you can get away with that when you're in college. Ask Johnny Manziel. You can phone it in. You can get away with it. Even some of the bigger games, you can kind of get away with it. You know, Johnny Manziel was talking about partying and sweating everything out and going and having a miraculous game. And then he thought to himself, well, I'm good to go. I don't have to study the playbook. I don't have to really watch film. I don't have to practice that much. I'm good, bro. It's fine. I play great like this. Eventually, it catches up to you, right? You can't party and fuck around and all that stuff because whatever your career is, eventually it's going to get in the way, right? Doesn't matter if you're working at McDonald's or you're a professional football player, it's going to catch up with you one way or the other. And as somebody who struggled with it, believe me when I tell you, it's a real thing. Now you're in the NFL, you can't just get lazy. Ryan Leaf to Marcus Russell. If you think that you are going to be sitting around playing video games and deciding that this is my way of being able to relax or whatever, that's cool, Broham, but you can only do it for so long before you can't phone it in. You can't just wake up and go, oh, yeah, I got a game tomorrow. Probably should have studied a little bit harder. Watch a little bit more film. Oh, well, it'll be fine. I got skills, bro, him. And he does. But see, though, that's just it. When I look at Kyler Murray, I look at somebody who could be so much better than what they really are. And I think for me, that's the frustrating thing. Because I didn't know about his work ethic, if I'm being honest with you, when he was in college. Sometimes it's really visible. Sometimes people hide it really good. Sometimes you're not paying attention. It is what it is. I wasn't a big believer for a lot of reasons, but work ethic certainly wasn't on the list. Now it comes to fruition. And so for me, this is a make or break season for Kyler Murray. Okay? He's got to do something spectacular. That's pretty much all there is to it. Okay, now they don't have a football coach to me that's going to work out. Got fire in your gut? Who drove here? Who drove a bus? Bro, it's the NFL. Nobody came in on a bus. Nobody's struggling to get to practice. You got a league minimum that's just shy of $1 million a year. Bare minimum, Brody's rolling up in a Toyota Camry. What I'm saying is maybe Kyler's got to do something else, go somewhere else. I don't know. But remember, wherever you are, you're still you unless you change who you are. So what's happened is Kyler Murray, he could go anywhere. You know, they were talking about it with Justin Fields. These guys, they could go anywhere. But unless they're able to put in the work and want to put in the work and do put in the work to change themselves, then they're never going to be the best at what they do. And the NFL is very comfortable with the next quarterback up. Hell, it's the most popular position on any team that's struggling is the backup. So Kyler Murray, to me, is destroying his own career. And I don't think there's any two ways about it. And I really feel as if he really, truly buckled down, he'd be an elite quarterback in this league. He can play football. And I've been telling people for a long time now, like, you Kyler haters, you're not ready for what he could do. But Kyler's got to really want it. That's just the reality. And if he doesn't want it, then it's his own career. The high school thing, though, in Texas, that really is a great accomplishment. It is. I'm not going to take that away from him because it's phenomenal. But don't let that be the defining moment either, though. Look, I'm not here to preach at anybody. It is what it is. These are life lessons that I've had to learn. I'm a 40-year-old man. I've made every mistake in the book. It's fine, bro. I don't have to watch football this weekend. I know what's going to happen. It's all good. Go out, party, kick it, drink, wake up on Sunday, way too hungover to watch a game of football. After being out till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, doing all the BS, hanging out with fighters, kicking it, drunk off of my ass. 3 hours of sleep just laying there, not even able to move. I got a show to do on Monday. I've learned every hard lesson. The video game thing happened to me. It's why I got rid of my PS3. Got home from a gig that I used to do in radio. Got done with my show. 10 o'clock in the morning. Show used to air from 8 to 10. Got done with the show. Home by 10:30. Video game on, up, and going hardcore at 10:45. 2 a.m. I look up and go, damn, man. No wonder I'm shaking. I'm hyperglycemic. I haven't eaten. I haven't used the bathroom. Haven't had any water to drink. Oh, and by the way, I didn't bother to study for the show for tomorrow morning. And I got to be up in about 4 hours. because I was the one that opened up the station and turned on all the lights and all that stuff. So I had to be there at 6:30 in the morning. So guess who was up all night trying to hurry up and put a show together? That, by the way, was terrible. It's just not how you get by. So I was like, all right, man, got to get rid of this thing. It's going to be a distraction. See ya. So day whatever of Jamar Chase watch. I mean, at this point, I'm not really sure that I give a damn. I mean, I'm just keeping it a buck. I don't know that I care enough to really say anything that hasn't already been said. There's nothing more that can be added to this situation. Reportedly, we know what he wants. One more penny. What? One more penny. And another thing is I don't know if he's trolling or not. Woo. Well, if he's going to get one more penny than CeeDee Lamb, or Jefferson, whatever, Broham, do you, boo-boo. Here's what I think. I think Jamar Chase knows exactly the position that he's in. I think he realizes that there's no run game. The offensive line is garbage. The coach isn't that good. You have Joe Burrow carrying your football team. Pay me or somebody else will, Broham. And you know damn good and well, if you lose me, we're done. Zach Taylor, he'll be there week 1. Bro, we're close. I don't know if Zach Taylor knows this or not, but today's Tuesday. It's not exactly the beginning of August anymore. Football starts this Thursday. Hell, there's a game on Friday. You got to get this thing done. And he knows that. He knows you are getting to the nitty-gritty. He knows you're in desperation mode. He is well aware of these things. Let's not pretend that he's unaware. And let's not pretend that the Bengals are unaware either. They're business people. They know about this stuff. They know when it's crunch time. They know when you've got time. You no longer have time. You no longer have time. When you believe in your worth and you know your worth and you understand situations and you get the business aspect of things, this is how it works. And I don't have a problem with athletes using their position as power either. NFL football teams have been doing it for years. College programs and the NCAA has been doing it for years. It's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun, is it? All right, so I guess Joey Broham eats 83 hot dogs. Apparently that's sports news. Well, I got news for everybody. A, no, it's not. B, I don't give a damn what anybody tries to tell me. You're not going to change my mind. Eating hot dogs for a living is not a sport. It's a contest, but contest and sport can be two different things. Okay? It's not sport. Congratulations. You can eat damn near 90 hot dogs, Broham. I don't see how it's conducive to a great life. Somehow that bro has got a six-pack. I would love to know what his workout routine is. In fact, a lot of eaters have six-packs. I just can't imagine spending my life shoveling that much food down my face. I'm fat enough as it is. I've been trying to lose the weight. Of course, a lot of that's from beer, but it is what it is. Well, beer, and then on top of that being hellaciously drunk and then gorging afterwards. So I guess maybe I can't run my mouth, but it is what it is. I don't see it as sport. In fact, I got to get this off of my chest. To me, it's disgusting to sit there and watch people eat food. I don't understand ASMR videos, somebody smacking their lips and all this. Man, that's just gross to me. In fact, it's nasty. It's disgusting to me. I can't stand it. It actually irritates the fuck out of me. Like, legitimately pisses me off. And so anytime I see that stuff, I just scroll by, bro. I'm just like, nope. Somebody. Even hearing myself doing it. I don't, what part of the eardrum does that hit? What part of the eardrum does that hit where you go, that's nice. Keep doing that. Go. No. God, man. And somehow I always end up scrolling by something and I get duped into it by accident somehow. And then like that girl that was eating the donuts. Ugh. That crumble place, right? Crumble cookie or whatever. Oh my goodness. She sat there and ate a slew of them and it just right in the microphone. I wanted to throw my phone out the fucking window. Nasty. Okay. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to clear a couple of things up because the comment section went a little crazy on me yesterday. Since I know nobody's got the attention span for anything longer than a minute. Look, first of all, I don't have any animosity towards anybody. All right. You can comment negative stuff about me or whatever the case is and call me an idiot and tell me I don't know football and all. Like, honestly, that doesn't get to me. It doesn't. I feel I need to clear a couple things up, though, because it's either people don't understand, don't want to understand, or just maybe I'm not saying it in a way that's direct enough. So I'm going to try this again. Okay. First of all, the reason why I point out 1970 to 2008 when I discuss how many championships the SEC won is because Texas in 1969, they were the last all-white team to win a national championship. Now, that is a dividing line as a moment in history, and that is what I use it for, a significant moment in history. Now, for some weird reason, that triggers people. I don't know why. They tell me, why are you bringing race into it? I'm not, but if you're uncomfortable with these conversations, all right, so it's what happened. So from 1970 to 2008, the SEC won 10, potentially 11 championships. The 1973 one, lot of controversy behind that. Notre Dame absolutely could have been the national champion. And they shared a few titles, okay? So not all of them were won outright. Now, there was a voting system in place during that time, and that was right around the time the Associated Press started getting their way, and, but even through the BCS era, I hate to break this to everybody, the national champion was still voted on. They just heavily considered the bowl champion or the bowl series champion, right? The BCS champion. They heavily considered them. So you had a BCS champion and then you had a national champion. It's the way that it is. Regardless, the point is barely 10 and damn near 40 years. Now, ESPN started getting involved, and the more ESPN got involved, specifically in 2008, when they laid out $2.25 billion to the SEC network, all of a sudden, we start seeing this shift happen with the SEC. Now, somebody's going to go, his name is Nick Saban. And I'm not going to say no to that, but don't forget, some of Nick Saban's wins were taken away from him. Regardless, what I am saying is this. Since 2008, when ESPN laid out that money to the SEC network, we are now in 2024, 16 years. The SEC has won 10 championships. So it went from 10 championships in a 40-year period, 38 to be specific, to 10 championships in a 16-year period. Now, you could call that a coincidence all you want to. Maybe you just need it so that way it justifies your conference. Maybe you need it so that way it justifies your football team. But the reality is the SEC's top heavy is phenomenal. But the top heavy has been LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. Now that's real. You could maybe throw Auburn in there. I wouldn't have a problem with it. And as I've always said, the SEC West has the best subdivision in all of college football. But what you fans apparently seem to not understand, and I'm going to try and lay it out very simply, is this. I'm not necessarily debating on whether or not the SEC is the best conference in the country. Instead, what I am pointing out is that they didn't just maybe, they got a huge financial boost from ESPN. That's what I'm debating. I said for years that the SEC West was the best subdivision in all of college football. Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, pretty good football teams year in and year out. You're probably going to win 8, 9, 10 games. LSU. But for the most part, it has been Nick Saban in Alabama that carried that load. Georgia's been very recent. With Mark Richt, I always said that he won games that he shouldn't and that he lost games that he shouldn't. It's pretty much the reality of the situation. So what I am saying is, while you're mad at me thinking that I'm trashing the SEC and that I think the SEC is garbage, what I'm saying is they got to where they are through a significant amount of money. A significant amount of money that was used to push the SEC. And with that push and putting them on TV and giving them their own network, and then ESPN throwing all this money around, and then bringing in high school recruits that they knew were significantly had a higher chance of going to an SEC school. They put them on national television. So with better recruiting profiles came better recruits. With better recruits came better coaches. With better coaches came more wins, more championships, and then from there, what would the SEC split? Was it $51.3 million down to each school this year from all the revenue, which, by the way, the total was somewhere, it was over $700 million, which was up from $684 million. All the money going around, floating, it absolutely 110% helped the SEC get to the dominant place that it has been. But even then, I don't buy top 25 polls, and I'm not buying into the fact that every SEC team is amazing. South Carolina has already struggled with Old Dominion. A&M lost to Notre Dame. Mizzou beat Murray State, whoop-de-doo. Other teams beat Furman, Alabama A&M, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Stop the cap. And now SEC fans are already claiming Texas's championship to try and add it to their own trophy case. No. No. It's in a Big 12 trophy case, whether anybody likes it or not. Okay? So I want to be clear. I'm not debating on how good the SEC is. The last part I want to do, though, is if I were to debate it, here's what I would say. We don't know who the truly good power conference is right now. I don't think it's the Big 12. But between the ACC, the Big 10, and the SEC, with all the NIL deals and with all the transfer portal stuff that's floating around right now and all these kids going here and there and everywhere, it is so much more difficult now. Recruiting is going to be about establishing somebody for basically a 2-year period at best. Because when they get really good, there is a good chance that they can get a lot more money and go somewhere else. They're not going to sit on the bench anymore and wait for anybody. They're not going to do any of those things. So maintaining a football team with a consistent roster is going to be twice as hard. And as all this continues to happen and it continues to thin the herd and weed stuff out, we are going to see a significant drop in a lot of football teams because now a Travis Hunter will commit to Jackson State and then follow his head coach to Colorado. Or look at it like this. A Travis Hunter will commit to somewhere, the coach will leave, and he'll go, I'm going to go somewhere else, a.k.a. Isaiah Bond, who said, I'm leaving Alabama because Nick Saban isn't here anymore. It's just the reality of the situation. And this is why I say we're going to find out who the new coaches are and the old coaches are that can actually deal with this. Dabo can't. Nick Saban can't. There's a lot of coaches that hate this. They can't stand it. Oh, boy, a women's basketball coach calling it, it's transactional now. It's a business transaction. It's always been transactional. It's always been, hey, you're a supreme athlete. I think you can make me look really good as a head football coach and help me get even more money. You want to come play at my university? Oh, yeah, sure, education, blah, blah, blah. We'll get you set up. Anyways, want to come play football here? That's the way that it has always been. It's just the reality. And that's whether anybody likes it or not. So, all right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I'm wherever you're listening to the podcast. Tell your device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Don't forget, Friday is our MMA day. Our insider, Austin Ford, will be joining the program. Plenty to get to with MMA as the Sean O'Malley fight approaches near as well. Guys, your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.